change. Chat for change.
Hello everyone, welcome to Avanzar's Chat for Change. I am here today, my name is Sabrina Nicholson, and I am here today with JuWana McNear and Karena Turner. I'm going to have them introduce themselves and tell them exactly what you do here at Avanzar.
Okay, my name is Karena. I'm a QRC at Avanzar, and that's a Quality Rating Coordinator, where I look at the daycare center's documentation to make sure their policies are quality policies.
And again, my name is JuWana McNear. I'm the primary prevention specialist, and I provide education and training for the prevention of sexual assault or sexual violence.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I do here too. I usually don't get into to exactly what I do here, but I am. So I work actually directly with Karena in the Technical Assistance Center, and I am the Senior Head Start District TA Specialist. So we work for the state's Quality Rating Improvement System, and we go into early childhood centers, we go into district programs, and we help them go through the quality rating system in New Jersey called GNJK Kids. And I'm telling you that because I am going to probably link it back to my work a little bit later, so I want you to know what work I'm linking it back to. So I asked these ladies to come in with a quote that we just want to talk about. That's our opening activity for today. Talk about a quote that we actually like. I can start with the quote if you want me to.
Okay.
Okay. So the quote that I like is, "Speak up, even if your voice shakes." That has been my quote for the last year. And that is because I've been lately where you got to talk. You got to speak up. Mm-hmm. Because what am I going to regret doing more? Not talking at all? Because then I'm going to go home and I'm going to be like, you should have said something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I've gotten to the point now where if I speak up, I don't even care if you don't listen to me. Like, you could not like my opinion, mm-hmm. but I sleep good at night knowing I said something.
Yeah, there you go.
Whether I'm nervous or not. So that is my quote. That's my favorite quote right now.
Yeah, that's
Next year it may change.
My quote is, the definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over and over and expecting different results. And the reason that I like that one is because people always complain about things not changing, but they're not changing the way they do things. So if you continue to do the same thing, you're going to get the same results. So if you want something different, then you got to step outside the box and do something different.
I told somebody the other day.
What did they say?
Right before I said, don't tell me about this anymore. Because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. So I don't want to hear this anymore.
And were you talking to a child or were you talking to an adult?
An adult. Children are supposed to make mistakes.
Exactly.
Well, adults are supposed to make mistakes too, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But the definition of insanity is doing the same
thing over and over again.
Okay.
And the reason I like that one too is because I'm teaching my children that, and they're looking like, oh, and that's why I asked, was it an adult or mm-hmm. a child? Mm-hmm. Because as adults, I think we're supposed to learn to do something different if we're not getting, the results we want.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I really like yours. I might have to steal yours. But the tagline on my email account says, someone else's opinion of you doesn't have to become your reality. Mm-hmm. And I heard that from Les Brown, who's a motivational speaker, and I train. Mm-hmm. So, and we talked about before we even started imposter syndrome. Yep. So that helps me, because sometimes in those areas I am like, can I do this? Do I have enough knowledge for this? Or, you know what I mean? So not worrying about other people's opinion. Yeah. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean anything to you. You know what I mean? As long as you're confident in yourself, you'll be fine. So,
and usually aren't we the hardest on ourselves? Because we think that we don't know what we're doing up there. We're like, this training was horrible. Yeah. And you get people saying you did an amazing job. Right. Yeah. And you're like, but I really didn't even explain that right. Yeah. But you didn't do it all the way to perfection, but really
but somehow it comes through.
Exactly. We're hardest on ourselves.
Yes.
So we're our biggest critics.
We are. Yes.
Yeah. And that's hard to overcome too, even though we know that.
It is. Yes, it is. So today we're going to talk about Black history. Mm-hmm. We're just going to explore some areas about how we learned it. We're going to explore some areas about how we're trying to keep it on, and it's just some of our people that we just always keep in mind in our professional lives, our personal lives, just some of our inspirations. We have a lot of inspirations. So I just asked these ladies to bring a couple today. We're going to talk about it. So the first question is, how was Black history taught to you? We all have our own stories. We all know that we say schools don't always do the best job of telling our history accurately or teaching it at all. So I just thought it would be interesting to explore how we learned it.
Well, I'll answer that.
Okay.
Learned it through school.
Okay.
They went over Martin Luther King, George Washington Carver,
Okay.
maybe Rosa Parks, and that's about it.
Okay.
Going through life, watching TV, I get it from social media now, even more, and it takes you through a lot of range of emotions, and even through church, you hear about certain things. About Black history, and I'm loving it. And now that Avanzar is doing, participating in the race trainings, my goodness,
they are good. They are really good.
My goodness, again, Black history is so rich, and you just keep learning. You keep learning. So, I read and things like that, but and I don't read that much. I'm not an avid reader, I must confess.
Yeah.
But anytime I do get any morsel of that Black history, it's the best. I love it.
Okay.
Well, for me, they did teach us a little bit in social studies, like she said before, Dr. Martin Luther King, and a little bit of the slave trade, and none of it was from my family. Like, nobody talked about Black history in my family. I learned it from when I first watched the TV show Roots, and I was like shocked. I was like, that went on? And so that's where I pretty much learned to want to know more, because the stuff that they taught us in school, I was not making a connection with me. So I was learning about these people. I didn't know that was a big issue. Like, it's a real whole thing to know your history. And nobody taught me that until I watched Roots, and then I was like, it's on.
Okay. So in school, you kind of learned surface level.
Very surface level, but never a connection with me. That was them. That was Martin Luther King's
it was like
walk.
everybody else in
It
the
was,
history book.
they had a story that somebody was in the slave trade, not knowing that these were my ancestors.
That's interesting.
So
Okay.
there was no connection from the school with me. And then when you're in your home, no one talks about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
JuWana, how family-wise did you learn anything?
Yeah, again, not so much of the slave trade things, but my dad introduced me to the music. And I just loved that, the Lena Horne, the Donny Hathaway, the things of that nature. And then, you did learn some things just not to do, for, that you didn't do this. And in this town only, you didn't go up on the hill. The hill and South Side were different. So there was, Black history that way, where at a certain time, any Black person did not go up on the hill. You stay, you come back down on the South Side, because you're not supposed to be there.
So where did you grow up? Where did you grow up?
Cumberland County.
Cumberland County. Okay.
So, so those type things, but not a lot of, going through books and learning about, say, I'm going to talk about her later. So.
Okay. All right. And where'd you grow up, Karena?
And see, I was in Alabama, right there in the heart of it. and there was no conversations in our home. Like, it was like the area was either numb to it, or they were just used to that's just the way it was. Okay. And so, but my mom didn't go over anything with me. My father didn't go over anything with me. It was just what I learned a little bit in school, and that's how I, grew up. And it was in Alabama.
Oh, okay.
In the heart of the South.
So when I hear people discuss that, I've begun to realize I've had a really unique experience in school. I grew up in Lawnside, New Jersey, small town in Camden County, previously Snow Hill, previously Fort Freehaven, and they actually beat into our heads every day. And I say it's a good thing. So I don't want to make light with the beat it into our heads, but I do realize that we are really lucky because of that. Because everything was Black history. Serafina every day. The music class, you learned the jazz, if it was taught, it was fun to be Black History.
So that was in your school system?
Yeah, yeah. It was a small, predominantly Black town. Underground Railroad stop. Peter Mott House is there. William Still was there. So it was a sense of pride in Black history all the time. At our assemblies, we only sung the Black National Anthem. We didn't sing the Star Spangled Banner until I started going to Heights, which is our
And I didn't even know that until I was grown.
I didn't know people sung other songs. What is this they're talking about? I'm singing that.
It's just different worlds.
So, like, I'm talking serious. Like, gym was African dance. Like, we put on our garb, and me and one of my best friends performed Wade in the Water with our blue curtains. Like, that's just what we did every day. And a lot of our teachers, which are mostly retired now, the ones that taught me, but they were like, you have to have a sense of pride. Like, if you're walking through Lawnside, even going to the cemetery, you know, he buried here. Like, we did that. Like, that was what we did. I didn't really care about it back then because it was just what we did. But now that I realize that a lot of people didn't know, I am proud of it now because I'm like, they taught us everything that was terribly done to us, and everything that we should have pride about. So I'm like, oh, that's actually good. I like it. So why do you think Black history isn't really taught in the family, or it was kind of watered down in school?
Well, I know for our area, growing up in Alabama, I don't know what happened with my grandmother and their parents, but I think generationally they numb it down, and they don't want any trouble. And that's passed down to their children, and then they come with us. Like I said, my mom never ever talked to us about it. She could go to work, and then she'll come home and she might complain about Caucasian, but she never went into the why it was like that. So it could be back in the day they were scared and they didn't teach their children, or they was just numb to it. And that's the only thing that I could figure out. And like I said, I didn't know a lot until I was like 17 when I watched Roots.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. I just had something in my mind and it went away. But I think that that's what it was. To me, I think they were in survival mode, trying to make a living, trying to do the things that they needed to do. And at the time, it was like, I don't have time to stop and give you a history lesson. If something came up, now if something came up in the news or whatever, and you know, it's like, you know what I mean, oh, who's that or what's that? Then yes, that I believe that lesson would be told, or would be, you know, you would get that information on that. But I think, I'll just say from my family perspective, I think the thing was, let me go make sure I'm working. Let me make sure I'm taking care of you. And in those things that, you know what I mean? Again, if there was opportunity for it, I'll do it. But right now, that's not our focus right now. We're trying to... We're
in the present. It's like a present tense type of thing. You know what? That whole survival mode thing, I think that's probably really true. And I would say that maybe because you grew up in Alabama, I would think that it's probably even more so true.
Yeah, because everybody just worked. Everybody had a job. No one was talking with children. It was the children were outside. Parents went to work. You got fed, and that was it. There was no conversation about it. As if they didn't want to stir up anything.
Yeah, and that makes complete sense. That's a trauma response. That's a survival mode type of thing.
Yep.
Maybe it's not even a trauma response. Maybe it's just that, okay, we need to do what we have to do historically. Because if you think about it, we call it Black history, but it's not that far removed. Like,
no, it's not.
It's really not. So, especially what happened in the South.
Exactly.
So, it's like, oh no, we're going to be safe. We're going to do this. We're going to be okay. There's no trouble here. So, I definitely understand that. That makes complete sense.
And I don't even know my grandfather's story. All I can remember about him is that he was very quiet. He didn't say anything. And then when you think about Black history and the history, you have to think, was that a trauma response? Why didn't he talk? Why didn't he laugh? Why didn't he play with us? We asked for a nickel. He just pulled it out. He didn't say a word and gave us a nickel and kept it going. But that was it. But it could definitely be a trauma response, and he was definitely a worker. He had 15 jobs.
Yeah. So history. are we trying to make a way to keep it going? Like, what do we do in 2023? Like, do you think it's important? Do you think that? I think it's been put out there that it is important now in the present day. Like, it's important to keep it going.
It is important. I think as I grew older, I realized how more important it is.
Yes.
Again, I think you spoke earlier about, you're in school. Why are we doing this? You know what I mean? Why do we got to do this? And, but as you get older, you really, truly appreciate what people went through. So I can sit here on this podcast.
Yes.
I can go where I want to go and do what I want to do. And, they paved the way. And I think sometimes it gets lost on us. And I'm not going to put the young people down, because I know they're tired of older people putting them down. But it's sometimes I think we need to make sure that does come up and say, you know what I mean? Did you know that this person did this? This is how you're able to do this. Just like we say, you know what I mean? You're able to get those sneakers because I work every day. I do this, you know what I mean? Whatever. But again, there were so many people, and I'm not trying to take it left, but there's so many people who died just so we could get to where we are now. And that really needs to be told. So right now, again, I'm not going to sit here and say, I had history lessons at my house. I would, if it came up again, like if it came up the news or things like that, I would definitely tell my daughters. I don't have grandchildren yet, but I'm going to make sure that they have books. I'm going to make sure that they have this information, because now I know how important it is. Now I know. So
exactly.
My mom is going to, in my future, I'm going to be my mom. So my mom is going to let my grandbabies know where we came from, how, you know what I mean, and instill these things into their lives. So that's how I'm going to keep it going.
There was a guy named Carter Godwin Woodson. He was known as the father of Black history in the 20th century. And the reason that I think he did what he did is because our history had been ignored in our books and different things like that. So he thought it was important to start this movement about Black history. So I think it was important because I think we need to know all time periods of Black history, from all the way in the past all the way up to the present. So the way we keep it going is by continuing to talk about it.
Yep, I agree. And you know what? Talking about it is important in a lot of different cultures. And I was looking up a couple things. Native Americans, they usually have like somebody assigned a storyteller, the historian, and that's important in their culture. And I read it's also in West African tribes. There's a lot of people that are assigned that. And of course, we don't have that. That was kind of taken from us. So we kind of all have to be our own storyteller, our own historian. So that is important. And I think it's a newfound importance in 2023. Well, present day, I'm using 2023 as a present day reference. But we have social media. We can tell things a lot faster than we could back in 1960. And it is important to tell. Personally, I don't go around shouting things from the rooftops. I'm not gonna lie, I don't even do a Black History post every day. Maybe I should. But I know, like, I have one son. I'm big on movies and stuff. Hey, come watch this. You gotta watch it. I don't watch that. I don't care. You need to learn it.
Right.
Even if it's not like a slave movie or something, it's like, oh, this is a classic. Like, I don't care what, it's a classic. You need to watch it. Like, Love and Basketball, to me, it's a classic.
Oh yeah, that's the one right there. Yes, that's a classic. That's right.
If we did it as a people and it was good, it's a classic.
That's right.
You gotta watch it. We made a lot of strides in Black history. In a short period of time, that we had to make a whole lot of strides. So all of that is our history. It's not just the slavery period or the Civil War period.
And the inventions. We had a lot of inventions.
So it's like, no, we have to talk about that. We have to let our children know, your future grandkids know. It's definitely important.
And I know for me, I like to write short stories.
Okay.
And so, and what I do is I'll have my children read them. And I do it on purpose so they can learn. I was like, well, what do you think about this? And so that's how I kind of get it into them without saying, okay, let's sit down. We're going to go over this. And I'll let them critique me. I was like, is it good? Is it bad? And they was like, oh, I didn't know about so-and-so and so-and-so. But that's one of the things that I like to do is to write the little short stories and then have them read them. And a lot of them are about Black history.
Oh, that's good.
Very good.
So do you is it like history, your history, or history?
It's more like one of them was called Just Thinking Out Loud, and it was about a little boy who was saying that he was going to be great one day.
Okay.
And I know for some of us, especially growing up in the South, no one said you can be this. No one said you can be great. And so for him, in the story, I wanted the children to read the story to let them know they can be great one day. And so, and it also in that book, the mother talked to the little boy in the book about the past and how to go get over the obstacles that our people had to get over up into the present, knowing that they can be whatever, seeing the people that, like John Lewis, things that he's done, Malcolm X, Oprah Winfrey, all of them, to see, so he can see in the book that he can be whatever he wants to be. And maybe, somebody didn't tell that to their child.
Yeah.
Well,
when you know Black history, then you also know that representation is also key.
Yeah.
Because we need representation everywhere.
Yes.
And I even take that to work. Like, in our line of work with early childhood, we have indicators that say you need diversity.
Absolutely.
And why do you need diversity? You were just saying earlier about 0 to 5 is when you observe the most.
Yeah.
Well, children should be able to see their own color in their classroom. Right. They should be able to see a picture. They should be able to see preferably a teacher too. A teacher, someone in the admin team. Representation shows us that we belong there.
Absolutely.
And when you go down the periods of history, you start to see more and more and more, and that's because we had to make those strides and blast ways to do it. And we got to continue to do that.
I used to get excited about seeing Black people on TV. And, it was a big thing with the one channel that we had.
So, one thing that I know I was talking to somebody about the other day is a lot of people would say children are to be seen and not heard. And I remember saying, like, okay, well, listen, I do understand there's a historical thing there. That's very historical.
Yes.
But right now, present day, representation is key, and we need to teach our kids how to be heard correctly, so that they can be in the boardroom. Because we don't need to be seen and not heard.
Exactly.
We need to teach them how to be in those rooms where people make decisions.
Exactly.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about some of our figures from Black history that inspire us. And we can talk about whether they inspire us personally, professionally. Just going to try to just honor some of them by talking about them. We're going to start with females. Personally, I did not pick one, but I do have someone I would love to bring up. Michelle Obama, for me. And it was when she went to an all-girls school and she did an interview and she talked about imposter syndrome. And she said that she still struggles with imposter syndrome. That was it for me. Because first of all, I didn't really know exactly what imposter syndrome was. I didn't know it was a real thing. I had to look it up. And she said, I still struggle with that. However, she said, I've sat at every major table in the world. She said, they're not that much smarter than you. And that kind of resonated with me because I know I do that a lot. Kind of what we were talking about earlier, like where you're about to do a training and you realize that like they think you're amazing and you just think you slacked off on the whole training.
I messed up here, I messed up there.
Yes, but they don't even see it. They're like, oh, you did good. Like I learned a lot. Basically, that's how they're judging the training, how much they learned, and they probably didn't know it when you walked in. So when she said that, I was like, you know what? I had to think about things. People think I'm good at things all the time, and I don't think I am. And that's imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
That is definitely imposter syndrome. And then I had to think about, she was right. Everybody's not that much smarter than you. Like, it's the truth.
They faking it too?
I don't care who you are. Like, because you know what? Especially if you're working at a place where it's a team.
Yeah.
Like, guess what? The team needs my opinion. Yes, needs my opinion because
Right.
your opinion is important too.
Yeah.
So that really made me think, and I try to go into every situation knowing that, not being overly confident, not being cocky, because me personally, I think humility is something that everyone should have. However, I worked hard to be at a certain table. Everyone worked hard to be at that table. You deserve a spot there. It's perfectly fine unless you decide that you want to go sit down.
Right.
So that was important for me. So that's why that was my soapbox about Michelle Obama.
Very good.
I did have Mary McLeod with them, and I just liked her story because she didn't. She knew what she wanted, and she didn't let anyone stop her doing what she was doing. She's a product of slaves, and they said that at 17 she could pick 250 pounds of cotton. She, you know what I mean, she got married, she had her own land, you know what I mean, she wanted to start her school. She wanted to be a missionary. And they told her, no, that's all right, you don't want to be you don't want you to be a missionary. But she didn't let that stop her. And her persistence, that's what just resonated with me. So then, she was married and they got a divorce, and she had to raise her son, and she opened up a school, and then she was like, I'm going to go to a university. But you got to think about this. This is back, when she's 18 something. You know what I mean? To open up a school and then open up a university.
Yes.
You have to have persistence, because I know when she, can I?
No. A whole lot of resistance.
A whole lot of resistance. Yes. She did know Eleanor Roosevelt, who was a friend, you know what I mean? So you got a little clout behind you, you can do certain things. However, even if she didn't have Eleanor as her friend, I believe she still would have made it out just fine, because she had that persistence.
Yes.
And you just have to continue to be persistent in what you want to do. So that's why I like to lift her up.
Okay.
Well, my person that I admire was Sojourner Truth, because she was about the truth.
Okay.
She was about that truth. And her contribution to anti-slavery movement, and along with women's rights. So she was a speaker. She spoke the gospel. She had a very interesting story where she stood up against white men to get her children back, which I thought was amazing back in that time. That was unheard of. And for her continuity, just to continue to tell her truth and stand there, I find that very amazing. And like I said before, coming from where I came from, where nobody uplifted you, she uplifted herself, and she said, I am somebody. And she was able to get those children, and she ran away from slavery. Somebody actually paid her way out of slavery, and she went back to court and got her children. And I think that's an amazing woman. And she also worked with Frederick Douglass. So she was one of those people who had continuity. And she stood up against racism, sexism, and womanism.
When I hear both those stories, I hear that, really, they weren't going to let anybody tell them no.
No.
So, in present day right now, it kind of makes me think, who am I to let people tell me no? It's kind of like, but that is really what Black history is about, because these are stories of people that have faced
obstacles that we didn't have to.
Exactly.
And we have the resources now, so what is stopping us?
Exactly. Yeah.
From growing to our highest self.
Yeah.
And that's why I look at that, I'm like, she had to go through all of that, and then I have all of this, and why can't I get up? Why can't I do what I love? Why can't I persevere? Why can't I keep going?
Yeah.
That's Sojourner. She was telling her truth. That's why I love her.
That's why she
And guys, her children was in Alabama.
Oh,
So could be my cousin.
You never know.
Could be.
You never know. I know you both have some male figures to discuss too, so.
Well, we talked about representation earlier.
Yes.
And I do think that Barack Obama and Michelle, Barack Obama was a great representation of what can happen.
Yes.
Basically, sometimes I think we had a conversation off camera or things like that of, you know what I mean, the the aspiring to be this, but now you have the aspiring to be president. Now you have little kids. I could be a president.
Yeah, the representation.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't want to say it wasn't before, but I don't think a lot of black kids, African American kids, was like, I can be president. I can be a president. Now they can. I mean, they could before, but now they see it.
They see
that
it,
representation, and then how well they represented that office.
Yeah.
You know, they represented it well. Not gonna go into politics about how people thought about him, but they represented it well.
Yeah.
They carried it well for 2 terms.
Yeah.
2 terms. So I just, you know, I mean, I'm just waiting for the next person to come up and do this, you know.
And you talked about the
Paving
kids,
the
no
way.
Yeah.
I'm even thinking about, we talked about Black history and Civil War not really being that long ago. Think about the parents and the grandparents that really didn't, they're not going to tell their kids it's not possible, most of them anyway. But do you think they really thought it was possible? But they got to see that too.
There was a lady who went to go see them.
Okay.
It was an elderly lady. There's a video. And all she kept saying was, I just didn't know I was ever going to see this. I didn't think I was ever going to see this. And you could just see the joy in her.
Yeah.
Because to see, at that time, she didn't think,
Yeah.
you know, of all the stuff that people went through.
Yeah. And now she's going to
just to
probably
see
tell
it now.
grandkids and
Right.
great grandkids, like, no, you really can do this. Like, I've seen it with my own eyes. It
Right.
can happen. So,
You're who we've been praying for.
Yeah.
Or wanted, or, you know, things like that. So, yes.
And that's interesting because my guy was Malcolm X, and part of his story was when the teacher in school asked him what he wanted to be, and he said a lawyer, and the teacher said you can't be that. He left school that day, and he didn't go back because he didn't believe that. Now, and the reason I also like him because I think Malcolm X did a lot of self work because all the stuff that he went through with his father dying when he was young and his mother being in an institution, and then he was in foster care and he started getting in trouble, and he didn't start getting his life back together until he was in prison. And I find that he is a very interesting, so he had to do self-work. And that's interpersonal work that we all have to do within ourselves. And that's why I find this man very interesting. And of course, you guys all know his story. If you don't, it's all on YouTube. It's all on YouTube. But he was an amazing speaker. He was an amazing man. He had a lot of ideas. And he was about his community. And he was about an eye for an eye, too. So you didn't roll up on Malcolm X and didn't think you was going to get. If you come at him with something, he had something for you. And I think for us to be able to have that kind of courage and to stand for something we believe in, that's why I love this man.
okay. He was represented in the Ali movie too, right? Yeah, I was watching it.
Yeah.
He was, he was represented in that movie. Yeah, I don't know too much about Malcolm X, like the details. I know who he is. I don't know the fine details. So that is interesting.
Yeah, he was a very interesting, very smart guy. And he was willing to die for his community, and he did. He did. There's a lot of controversy with him, you know, and I understand that. But as far as the message for his people or African American people, he meant that thing. He wanted us to succeed. He wanted his communities to be clean. He wanted his communities to be good, and that was the kind of work that he was moving toward.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard of the controversy. You know what? They were all working to get it done. To heighten our communities up.
Yeah.
It was just different approaches.
It was different approaches.
to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know people do say that him and Malcolm had some beef between each other, but I think before they were assassinated, that they were coming together to have a truth, to do it the best way.
Yeah.
You know, because one perspective is one way, but if you combine those two perspectives, you will get to the truth at some point.
Yeah. And Malcolm X was big on the self-reflection piece. I think his whole life kind of mirrored self-reflection.
Yeah, he was his own critic. He was. I think that interpersonal work is so important.
Yeah, definitely is.
Yeah.
So, the people that you brought up today, do they have intertwined with anything of your personal life, professional life? Do you kind of like what part of their work do you try to
Mimic for me, I think it's the courage to stand when it's hard.
That courage is big, yes. Okay.
And see, like I said, coming from where I came from, I was very quiet, believe it or not. Very quiet in school. I didn't say a word until college. I promise you. And see, that courage, like I know for me growing up, everything, especially in the black community, the black home, it was hush. Like you said, you're there, but you're not seen. Mm-hmm. So it was, you learned to be quiet. And then when I saw these black figures like myself, my same skin color, standing up and reading their stories, I said, I can do that. Mm-hmm. I can train myself to do that. But we're coming from birth, because who knows what the stress level was with the mom. Mm-hmm. Coming from there all the way up through childhood being hushed, you got to undo and unravel.
That's true.
You got to unravel those generational curses. Mm-hmm. And it's work. And I'm 51 years old, and I'm still doing that. I'm still learning how to do that. And I'm trying to train my children to be that, have that courage. But what comes with that is a bunch of lip talk. Mm-hmm. But I do allow it because I want them to be able to talk when they leave my house.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I want them to be able to stand for something when they leave my house and not be afraid.
Well, I think the perseverance of Mary and, kind of piggybacking off of what you're saying, standing up. Your quote saying, even if your voice got to be, shaking, still say something. Mm-hmm. Still say something. I teach my girls. I'm better at it now. Mm-hmm. I was a talkative one in school. Report cards, talk too much. Mm-hmm. And then later on, I got quiet, right? Yeah. But now, through the work through Avanzar, mm-hmm. with the dismantling racism and things like that, I'm finding my voice.
Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes, I don't go off too much, but my kids be like, Mom, and I'm like, you gotta say it, you gotta say it. So, Mom, and I'm just like, I just want y'all to know that you don't have to be done that way. People don't have to do it that way. So, again, that perseverance, sticking up for yourself, speaking up, that's what I get from them.
Okay. Well, thank you, ladies. That was a good conversation. Black history. Listen, we could probably talk about Black history all day, every day, because there's so many different elements of it, so many different people to discuss. Mm-hmm. But this was our episode in honor of Black History Month. We're going to do it again. Thank you. But
are we going to do it again?
Again, this is Avanzar Chat for Change. I'm here with
JuWana
McNear.
And Karena Turner.
And my name is Sabrina Nicholson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Change. Chat for change.